The massive alien warship hung in the darkness of space, like a predator watching its prey. On its command bridge, Admiral Gray stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his scaled skin reflecting the soft glow of countless displays around him. "Sir, we've detected a small vessel at the edge of our scanner range," reported First Officer Marcus, his antennae twitching with excitement. "It matches known human designs." Admiral Gray's yellow eyes narrowed. Throughout his 300 years of military service, he had heard countless stories about the humans and their infamous combat beasts. Every major species in the galaxy knew better than to keep predators aboard their ships. But humans, they were different. They were, as many species agreed, completely insane. "Show me," he commanded, his deep voice echoing across the bridge. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a small research vessel drifting quietly through space. Its white hull bore the markings of Earth's scientific council, but Gray wasn't fooled. His intelligence reports had been very clear. Every human ship, even the civilian ones, carried at least one of their combat beasts. "Scan it," he ordered, moving closer to the screen. "I want to know everything about that vessel." The crew worked quickly, their fingers dancing across their control panels. After a few moments, Second Officer Reed spoke up, her crystalline body sparkling, as she turned toward the Admiral. "Sir, it's the ERS Pioneer. Crew complement of 4 humans. Minimal weapons, just point defense systems." But she hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "We're detecting a reinforced containment unit in the recreation area." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Admiral Gray felt his scales ripple with anticipation. This was perfect. A chance to capture one of the humans' beasts and study it. The military had been wanting to understand these creatures for years, to learn how humans had managed to turn natural predators into weapons. "Battle stations," he commanded. "Prepare the boarding parties. I want that ship taken intact." As alarms blared throughout the warship, Gray touched the ceremonial scar on his chest, a reminder of his first and only encounter with a human beast 20 years ago. He had barely survived that day, but it had taught him respect for humanity's capabilities. "Sir," First Officer Marcus interrupted his thoughts, "shouldn't we just destroy them? The containment unit readings are troubling." Gray turned to his officer, noting the fear in his subordinate's vibrating antennae. "No, this is too valuable an opportunity. Besides," he gestured to their massive warship, "we have them completely outgunned. What could they possibly do?" On the screen, the human vessel continued its peaceful journey, seemingly unaware of the danger approaching. Gray knew better than to underestimate its crew. Humans were notorious for appearing harmless right until the moment they unleashed their beasts. "Boarding parties report ready, Admiral," Second Officer Reed announced. "Good. Deploy the containment field." A shimmer of energy erupted from the warship, surrounding the smaller human vessel. The Pioneer's engines flared briefly as it tried to escape, but it was too late. The ship was trapped. "Admiral," Marcus called out, his voice shaking slightly, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Put it through." The screen changed to show a human male with graying hair and a surprisingly calm expression. "This is Captain Tom of the ERS Pioneer. May I ask why you've trapped our vessel?" Gray stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full height. "You have entered restricted space, human. Your vessel will be boarded and searched. Do not resist." A strange expression crossed the human's face. Was that amusement? Gray felt his scales bristle. How dare this human not take him seriously? "Sir," Reed interrupted urgently, "we're detecting movement in their containment unit." The human captain's eyes widened slightly. Then that same strange expression returned. "Admiral, I should warn you." Gray cut the transmission. He wouldn't let the human play any mind games with him. "Launch boarding parties immediately. Priority 1 is securing that containment unit. And remember," he added, his voice grave, "whatever you do, do not let them release their beast." As his troops prepared to board the human vessel, Admiral Gray couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the captain's reaction. But it didn't matter now. Soon, one of humanity's greatest weapons would be his to study. Little did he know, he was about to learn a very different lesson about humanity than the one he expected. The boarding party moved through the airlock with military precision, their weapons held ready. Squad leader Ben led the front, his armored exoskeleton whirring with each step. The team had trained for this moment countless times, but facing an actual human beast was different. Everyone remembered the stories. "Move in teams of 3, Ben ordered through the comm system. "Watch the corners. These humans are tricky." The corridors of the Pioneer were surprisingly bright and clean. Cheerful paintings hung on the walls, and plants grew in small containers along the walkways. It seemed, too, peaceful. "Sir," Private Jack whispered, his tail twitching nervously, "why would they decorate a warship?" "This isn't a warship," Ben replied, checking his scanner. "That's what makes them so dangerous. They hide their weapons in plain sight." The squad moved deeper into the vessel, following their scanners toward the recreation area. They found no resistance, no traps, no security systems, just more paintings and plants. The silence was unnerving. "Movement ahead," Private Rose reported, her crystalline form shifting colors with anxiety. "The human crew is gathered in the main recreation room." Ben raised his claw, signaling the team to halt. "Status of the containment unit." "Still secure, sir." But Rose paused, checking her readings again. "There's something odd about the energy signatures." "Explain." "Well, sir, it's much smaller than our combat containment units, and the power output is minimal." Ben's antenna twitched. Something wasn't adding up. But they had their orders. Breach the recreation room. Standard capture formation. The boarding party positioned themselves around the door. On Ben's signal, they burst into the room, weapons raised, ready for anything, except what they actually found. 4 humans sat calmly at a table, playing some kind of card game. Captain Tom looked up and smiled. "Would you like to join us? We're playing poker." The aliens froze, confused by this casual reception. Ben's training kicked in. Everyone on the ground. Now, the humans complied, still looking strangely unworried. Private Jack moved to secure them while Ben and Rose approached the containment unit in the corner. It was much smaller than expected, barely larger than a storage box. "Sir," Rose said, scanning the unit, "these readings make no sense. The security measures are basic, and there's something alive inside." But a sound came from the unit, a small, high-pitched noise that made every alien soldier jump. "What was that?" Ben demanded, pointing his weapon at Captain Tom. The captain, still lying on the floor, tried to hide his smile. "Oh, that. Just a yawn. Someone's probably waking up from their nap." Another sound came from the unit, this time like soft scratching. The alien soldiers backed away, forming a defensive circle. "Admiral," Ben called through his comm, "we've secured the humans, but the situation is unusual." Admiral Gray's voice crackled through the speaker. "What about the beast? Is it contained?" As if in response, another small noise came from the unit, this time a tiny woof. The aliens stared at each other in confusion. None of their intelligence reports had mentioned sounds like this. Their combat training hadn't prepared them for whatever this was. "Sir," Private Jack said, his voice shaking, "maybe we should wait for the containment specialists." Ben was about to agree when he noticed something even more disturbing. The humans were trying not to laugh. Years of combat experience told him that when your enemy was laughing, you were probably in trouble. "Admiral," Ben reported, requesting immediate backup, and he was cut off by another sound from the unit, followed by what appeared to be tail wagging against the inside of the container. "What kind of weapon is this?" Rose whispered, her crystalline form shifting between colors rapidly. Captain Tom cleared his throat. "I tried to warn your admiral. You see, that's not exactly a weapon. It's silence. Ben ordered, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. Admiral Gray will decide what to do next. The humans exchanged glances and settled into wait, occasionally glancing at the container with fond expressions. The alien soldiers maintained their positions, weapons trained on both the humans and the mysterious unit, jumping at every small noise it made. None of them were prepared for what would happen when Admiral Gray arrived and demanded they open the container. None of them except the humans, who were having an increasingly hard time keeping straight faces. The beast, whatever it was, made another sound, this time something that sounded suspiciously like a happy squeal. Ben had a sinking feeling that this mission was about to become very, very strange. Admiral Gray strode into the recreation room of the Pioneer, his tall frame casting a shadow over the captured humans still sitting on the floor. His yellow eyes immediately locked onto the small containment unit in the corner, which occasionally wobbled with movement from within. "Report," he demanded. Squad Leader Ben snapped to attention. "Sir, we've secured the crew without resistance. The creature remains contained, but it's behaving strangely." As if on cue, a small whimper came from the unit, followed by what sounded like scratching. Admiral Gray's scales rippled with tension. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a combat beast that made such sounds. It had to be a trick. "Human," he addressed Captain Tom, "you will release your weapon now." The captain scratched his head, fighting back a smile. "Admiral, I really think there's been a misunderstanding. That's not exactly a weapon." Silence. Gray's tail slashed through the air. "Do not take me for a fool. Our intelligence reports clearly show that humans keep dangerous combat beasts on their ships." One of the other crew members, a young man named Mike, spoke up. "Sir, if I could just explain." "You will release the beast," Gray interrupted, "or we will be forced to use more persuasive methods." The container gave another wobble, and an excited yep emerged from within. Several alien soldiers took involuntary steps backward. Captain Tom sighed. "Admiral, I understand your concern, but I promise you, what's in that container is completely harmless. In fact, harmless." Gray barked out a laugh. "I bear the scars of my last encounter with one of your harmless beasts. 20 years ago, on the frontier world of Nexus Prime, one of your creatures attacked my patrol unit." The captain's eyes widened with recognition. Nexus Prime. Wait, was this near a farm? With a large red building? "Yes." Gray's voice dropped dangerously low. The beast was enormous, with sharp teeth and a terrible roar. "Admiral," Tom said carefully, "that was probably just old Bill's dairy farm, and what you encountered was most likely his cow." "Cow." Gray spat the word. "You expect me to believe?" He was interrupted by another sound from the container, this time an unmistakable high-pitched arf, followed by more tail wagging against the sides. Private Rose's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "Sir, these readings, they're not consistent with any known combat species." Gray ignored her, focusing on Captain Tom. "You will open this container now." "That's an order." "Well," Tom said slowly, "I would, but you see, we just got the little one to sleep and—" A series of small thumps came from the container, along with what sounded suspiciously like playful growling. "Sleep." Ben's antennae twitched. "Combat beasts don't sleep during battle situations." "That's because it's not a combat beast," Mike muttered under his breath, earning a sharp look from both Tom and Gray. The Admiral had had enough. He drew his sidearm and pointed it at the container. "If you won't open it, we will." "No." All four humans shouted at once, finally showing real concern. Gray smiled grimly. "Ah, now we see your true worry, afraid we'll harm your precious weapon." "Actually," Tom said, standing up despite the weapons pointed at him, "we're more worried you'll scare the poor thing. Look, if you really want to see what's inside, I'll open it. but you have to promise not to shoot. Deal? Gray considered the offer. His military training screamed that this was a trap, but his curiosity about the strange sounds and readings was getting the better of him. Very well, he said finally. Open it. Slowly. The crew of the Pioneer exchanged glances, all of them fighting to keep straight faces. Captain Tom moved carefully toward the container, which was now shaking with excited movement. Just remember, Tom said, reaching for the latch, you asked for this. The entire room held its breath. Alien soldiers raised their weapons. Admiral Gray's hand tightened on his sidearm. The humans watched with barely contained amusement. No one was prepared for what happened next. Time seemed to slow down as Captain Tom unlatched the container. Admiral Gray's finger tensed on his trigger. Squad leader Ben's entire team shifted into combat stance. The only ones who appeared relaxed were the humans, who watched with barely hidden smiles. The latch clicked. The door swung open, and out waddled the most terrifying weapon humanity had ever unleashed upon the galaxy, a 3-month-old golden retriever puppy. The tiny creature blinked at the bright lights, yawned widely, and then sat down, tilting its head at the assembled alien warriors. Its tail began wagging so fast it became a golden blur. Complete silence fell over the room. That's your combat beast," Admiral Gray finally managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. The puppy responded by flopping onto its back, showing its belly, and looking at the aliens upside down with big brown eyes. "This," Captain Tom said proudly, "is Lieutenant Cookies, though we usually just call her Cookie." Private Rose's crystalline form cycled through a rainbow of confused colors. "Lieutenant. Honorary rank," Mike explained. "She's very good at boosting crew morale." Cookie rolled back onto her paws and took a few wobbly steps toward the nearest alien soldier. Private Jack let out a very unmilitary-like squeak and backed away from the approaching ball of fluff. "Careful," Tom said, trying to keep a straight face. "She might lick you to death." Admiral Gray stared in disbelief as the tiny creature sat in front of his troops and lifted one paw in greeting, just as she had been taught. His mighty boarding party, armed with the latest in military technology, was being completely undone by something that barely reached their knees. But our intelligence reports," Ben stammered. "The stories of human combat beasts." "Oh, those are probably about police dogs," Mike offered helpfully. "But Cookie here is just a pet. You know, a companion." The aliens exchanged bewildered looks. The concept of keeping a predator species, even a tiny, adorable one, as a companion was completely foreign to them. Cookie, growing impatient with the lack of attention, gave a small boof and trotted over to Admiral Gray himself. The mighty alien commander found himself looking down into the most innocent eyes he had ever seen. "Sir," Ben asked nervously, "should we retreat?" Before Gray could answer, Cookie did something that would later become legendary in alien military records. She brought him her favorite toy, a small stuffed animal, and dropped it at his feet. Captain Tom grinned. "That means she wants to play." The Admiral stared at the small toy, then at the puppy, then at his troops, who were all watching with a mixture of terror and fascination. Here he was, a decorated military commander being invited to play by what he had believed was a deadly weapon. Cookie picked up the toy again and gave it a little shake, her whole body wiggling with excitement. I don't understand," Gray admitted. "Why would humans keep a predator as companion?" "Well," Tom said, kneeling down to scratch behind Cookie's ears, "sometimes the fiercest-looking creatures have the biggest hearts. Humanity learned long ago that friendship comes in many forms." As if to prove his point, Cookie abandoned her toy and began running in happy circles around the alien soldiers, her excitement becoming contagious. Private Rose was the first to break, kneeling down to get a closer look. The puppy immediately ran over and gave her a tiny lick, causing the crystalline alien to chime with surprise and delight. "Sir," Ben said, watching as his elite boarding party slowly succumbed to Cookie's charms, I don't believe this was covered in our combat training. Admiral Gray watched as the puppy now had half the soldiers sitting on the floor, all pretending they weren't completely enchanted by her playful antics. His fearsome military operation had just been transformed into what looked suspiciously like a puppy playdate. No, he agreed, feeling a strange urge to smile as Cookie returned to offer him the toy again. No, it most certainly wasn't. The day would go down in history as the first time an alien military operation was completely derailed by approximately 15 pounds of pure, unconditional love. News traveled fast in space. Within hours of the boarding incident, as it was now being called, the security footage from the Pioneer had somehow leaked to both human and alien communication networks. In the Pioneer's recreation room, Admiral Gray sat in a chair that seemed too small for his large frame, watching in mild horror as Cookie slept in his lap. The feared military commander absent-mindedly scratched behind her ears, causing her tail to wag even in sleep. "I still don't understand," he said, looking at Captain Tom. "You deliberately bring a predator species aboard your ships. For fun. Not just ships," Mike chimed in, showing Gray his personal device. "Look, this is my family back on Earth. We have 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a parrot." The Admiral's scales paled as he looked at the image of Mike surrounded by what his species would consider a small army of predators. "And they don't eat you." "Well," Tom laughed, "Cookie here might try to lick you to death, but that's about it." On the main screen of the recreation room, news reports from across the galaxy were pouring in. The footage of heavily armed alien soldiers being systematically disarmed by puppy kisses had gone viral. "My career is over," Gray muttered, though he made no move to dislodge the sleeping puppy. Private Rose, who had refused to return to the warship, sat nearby creating small crystal sculptures of Cookie. "Sir, with all respect, I think you might be wrong. Look at these reports." The screen showed various news headlines. "Dead Lie Human Combat Beast, REVEALED, UUDUNT BELIEV or KK HPPNs next. Top 10 moments when alien soldiers met Lieutenant Cookies. Breaking. Galactic Council demands explanation of puppy warfare. It's a diplomatic disaster," Gray said, just as Cookie woke up and gave him a tiny lick on his chin. "Actually," Captain Tom said, checking his communications panel, "we've received 17 requests for diplomatic visits in the last hour. Apparently, everyone wants to meet our secret weapon of peace." Ben, who had also stayed behind with a small security detail, was sitting on the floor trying to teach Cookie to shake hands. "Sir, the Galactic Military Academy has requested training materials on handling human companion animals." "Training materials?" Gray looked confused. Tom grinned. "They want to know how we train our pets. Apparently, the concept of forming emotional bonds with other species is fascinating to them." The Admiral looked down at Cookie, who was now showing Ben her belly for rubs. "In 300 years of military service, I've never seen anything like this. We've spent decades trying to understand human military advantages, and it turns out one of your greatest strengths is friendship." "Not just friendship," Mike corrected. "Understanding. Humans learned long ago that just because something has sharp teeth doesn't mean it can't also have a gentle heart." On the screen, footage showed various alien reactions to the incident. Some were outraged, some were fascinated, but most seemed genuinely curious about this strange human practice of keeping predators as companions. "Sir," Rose interrupted, her crystalline form glowing with excitement, "the Galactic Council has just issued a statement. They're proposing an interspecies pet understanding initiative." "Oh no," Gray muttered. "Oh yes," Tom smiled. "Looks like you're about to become the galaxy's leading expert on human-animal relationships, Admiral." Cookie chose that moment to wake up fully and jump down from Gray's lap, trotting over to her toy box and returning with a ball. She dropped it at the Admiral's feet and looked up expectantly. "What does she want?" Gray asked, though he was beginning to understand these moments better. She wants to play fetch, Ben explained, now surprisingly knowledgeable about puppy behavior. It's a game where you throw the ball and this is considered normal. Playing games with a predator species. Tom shrugged. Welcome to humanity, Admiral, where our most fearsome weapons are unconditional love and wet-nose kisses. As Gray reluctantly threw the ball, watching Cookie bound after it with pure joy, he realized that perhaps his long military career was about to take a very unexpected turn. And somehow, watching the tiny puppy return with her prize, tail wagging and eyes bright with happiness, he found he didn't mind at all. The galaxy would never be quite the same after meeting Lieutenant Cookies. 1 month after the Lieutenant Cookies incident, the Galactic Council's main chamber was experiencing something unprecedented: the sound of baby animals. In the center of the Grand Hall, surrounded by representatives from 30 different species, Lieutenant Cookies sat proudly next to her new diplomatic team. The once feared combat beast now wore a tiny vest with Interstellar Peace Ambassador written on it. Order. Order in the Council. The chief speaker, a towering insectoid, tried to maintain control as various alien diplomats cooed over the puppies that Earth had brought as potential diplomatic companions. Captain Tom, now promoted to Director of Interspecies Relations, stood at the podium. As you can see, Earth is prepared to establish a comprehensive pet partnership program. Each interested species will be carefully matched with compatible Earth animals. In the front row, Admiral Gray watched with a mixture of pride and embarrassment. His infamous military operation had somehow transformed into the galaxy's biggest pet adoption initiative. His new title: Supreme Commander of Interspecies Companion Relations. But how can we trust these creatures? Asked the Zentarian ambassador, even as he secretly fed treats to a corgi puppy under his desk. The same way they trust us, Tom explained. With time, patience, and lots of belly rubs. The chamber erupted in discussions. On the main display screen, statistics scrolled past. 427 diplomatic pet adoption requests pending. 89% decrease in interspecies conflicts in areas with active pet programs. Top requested Earth animals: dogs, cats, rabbits, hamsters. Breaking. Alien tourism to Earth up 300%. We want to see where the fuzzy diplomats come from. Cookie, now a seasoned professional, walked from delegate to delegate, offering her signature paw shake. Each time, even the most serious diplomats melted into what humans had started calling the puppy love protocol. Private Rose, recently promoted to Chief of Companion Security, mainly because she refused to be separated from Cookie, created crystal holograms, demonstrating proper pet care techniques. Remember, she chimed, Earth animals respond best to love, treats, and regular walks. But what about the military applications? A stern military commander from the Dracon Empire stood up. Surely these creatures have combat potential. Cookie responded by rolling over and looking at him upside down, her signature move. The fearsome Dracon warrior paused mid-sentence, then sat down quickly, trying to hide the fact that he had just squealed in delight. The only thing these animals fight, Ben explained from his new position as companion training coordinator, is loneliness, and maybe the occasional tennis ball. Mike, monitoring the galactic social networks, reported, Sir, #Lieutenant Cookies is trending again. The video of her teaching that Mercurian ambassador to fetch has gone viral. Fetch. Many alien delegates asked simultaneously. Tom grinned. Would you like a demonstration? The next few minutes dissolved into chaos as the most powerful beings in the galaxy learned the art of throwing balls for excited puppies. The chief speaker gave up trying to maintain order and instead joined in, their antenna wiggling with joy as a Labrador puppy brought back their first throw. This is absurd, Gray muttered to Tom, even as he continued petting Cookie. We've turned the Galactic Council into a puppy playground. Maybe, Tom replied, watching as ancient enemies took turns playing with the same golden retriever puppy. But when was the last time you saw the Zentarians and Draconians sharing anything? Gray had to admit he had a point. Somehow, these small Earth creatures had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy couldn't. The session ended with an unprecedented unanimous vote to establish the first galactic pet embassy on Earth. As the delegates filed out, many already filling out adoption applications, Cookie sat next to Gray and placed her paw on his hand. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" he asked her. Cookie just wagged her tail and licked his hand. Sometimes the best diplomatic answers didn't need words. As Gray watched the various species leaving together, talking excitedly about their new furry friends, he realized that perhaps the humans had the right idea all along. Sometimes the most powerful weapons weren't weapons at all. They were just love in a fuzzy package. 6 months after the incident that changed galactic politics forever, Admiral Gray stood in his private quarters aboard his flagship, straightening his ceremonial uniform. The fearsome warship had undergone some interesting modifications lately, including a pet deck, complete with a dog park and grooming station. "Sir," his computer announced, "it's time for your morning walk with Commander Biscuit." Gray smiled, looking down at the small German Shepherd puppy sitting perfectly at attention by his feet. After weeks of denying any interest in getting his own companion, he had finally given in. Commander Biscuit was technically a diplomatic training exercise, but everyone knew better. "Status report," he ordered, trying to maintain some military dignity even as Biscuit wagged his tail excitedly. "Lieutenant Cookies has completed her 100th successful diplomatic mission," the computer responded. "The Galactic Pet Embassy on Earth has processed over 10,000 adoptions. The Academy's Understanding Earth Companions is now the most popular course in military history." Gray picked up Biscuit's leash, an action that would have been unthinkable just months ago. "And the latest peace statistics. Interspecies conflicts are down 75% in sectors with active pet programs. The Puppy Peace Protocol has been officially adopted by the Galactic Council. Also, sir, your video teaching Commander Biscuit to sit has just reached 1 billion views." Gray sighed. He still wasn't used to being a social media celebrity. His transformation from feared military commander to that alien who talks baby talk to his puppy had been unexpected. The ship's corridors, once stark and military, now featured pictures of various crew members with their Earth companions. Private Rose, now running the ship's pet care center, had even created crystal sculptures of every animal on board. "Admiral," Captain Tom's voice came through the comm, "you're going to be late for the ceremony." Gray hurried to the ship's main hall, Commander Biscuit trotting perfectly beside him. The hall was packed with both human and alien dignitaries, all gathered for a very special occasion. Lieutenant Cookies sat on a small platform, looking regal in her formal diplomatic vest. Today she was being promoted to full ambassador status, the first Earth animal to hold such a position. "Who would have thought?" Tom whispered as Gray took his place on stage. "That 6 months ago, you were ready to shoot her." "Please don't remind me," Gray muttered, watching as Cookies went through her diplomatic duties, shaking paws with ambassadors from across the galaxy. Each of them wore a pin showing what Earth animal they had adopted. The Zentarian ambassador had a cat. The Dracon military commander kept showing everyone pictures of his rabbits. Even the chief speaker of the Galactic Council had recently adopted a pair of hamsters. "You know," Ben said, now running the new companion combat training program, which mostly involved teaching aliens how to play fetch properly, "we should send Cookie's statue to the Galactic Museum." "Already done," Rose chimed in. "My crystal sculpture of her is being installed next week, right between the Peace Treaty of Centauri and the First Contact Memorial." As Gray watched Cookie receive her ambassador's collar, he remembered how terrified he'd been of Earth's combat beasts. Now his own quarters were filled with dog toys, and he had a dedicated pocket for treat storage in his uniform. "Attention everyone," Tom announced. "Ambassador Cookies would like to demonstrate the traditional Earth celebration for this occasion." Everyone watched as Cookie pranced around the hall, giving her signature happy dance that had become famous across the galaxy. Soon, other Earth animals joined in: dogs, cats, rabbits, and even a particularly enthusiastic parrot, all celebrating in their own ways. "This is highly undignified for a military vessel," Gray said, trying to sound stern even as Commander Biscuit joined the celebration. "Oh, really?" Tom grinned. "Then why are you recording it?" Gray quickly hid his camera. "For diplomatic records, of course." The celebration continued as news spread across the galaxy. Earth's deadliest weapons had conquered the stars not through force, but through love, loyalty, and the occasional belly rub. And somewhere in the ship's database, a note was added to the original mission report from 6 months ago: Operation Combat Beast status. Failed successfully. Outcome: universal peace achieved through strategic deployment of puppy kisses. Lieutenant, now Ambassador, Cookies would probably have added her own comment, but she was too busy teaching the entire Galactic Council how to play fetch.